We're going now. Sorry, Mama. We're just about to go live. Oh, okay, sure. One after the other. Guys, we're keeping other people waiting here. So okay, you guys need to hurry up because other people need to interview. Well, thank you very much once again, Dumelo. Certainly, so much jubilation, so much excitement here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. As you rightly point out, finally, the names of, or rather the remains of the two struggle stalwarts, JB Marks and Moses Kotane, are finally home. And judging by the dignitaries that have come here today to celebrate with the families of JB Marks and Moses Kotane, certainly saying it was a struggle that was well fought for. Much more needs to be told about the contribution that these two struggle stalwarts did. I'm going to chat now, of course, to someone else who needs no introduction, Uncle Kathy, Ahmed Katrara. Thank you so much for joining us, Uncle Kathy, this morning. Certainly a day to be remembered on South Africa's calendar in terms of history. You being one of the struggle icons, today certainly a day to celebrate.
Well, it's a wonderful day to be part of the crowd, to receive back into the country the fathers of our struggle, both Moses Kotane and JB Marks. They were among the fathers of our whole struggle. I had the privilege of being a fellow accused in the trial of the 20 in the Defiance campaign. JB Marks, Moses Kotane, we were all together sentenced to 9-month imprisonment, all suspended. So I grew up under them, knew them well as comrades, but as my heroes. I was much younger than them, but they always were my heroes.
You certainly can be said to be the founding fathers. The founding fathers, those who came before, and those who paved the way for so many, including yourself, Uncle Kathy, who went on to end up seeing democracy.
Yes, well, I was privileged to be among them, but they were the pioneers. Moses Kotane, JB Marks, Chief Letuli, Sisulu, Mandela, they were the pioneers who laid the foundation of the new democracy. And I was privileged to be living at the time that they were living. Privileged to be walking the same earth as they were walking, and the same struggle of which we were all part together. So that was a great privilege for us.
What was it like, Uncle Catherine, during that time? There's so much sacrifice that was made. Many who fought in the struggle had to sacrifice quite immensely. They had to sacrifice their families. They had to sacrifice their countries, the countries of their birth. Certainly it must have been very difficult during that time.
No, they were an example that our youth should follow. They were prepared to sacrifice everything. For instance, when the Defiance campaign started, it wasn't a campaign where we said, you go ahead, the leaders come afterwards. They were different. They started the Defiance campaign. They were banned. So the Defiance campaign started with Moses Kotane, JB Marks, Dr. Dadu breaking their banning orders. So they were the first defiers to go to jail in the Defiance campaign. Then came the others. So what I'm trying to say, they led from the front. They were not sitting at the back and giving orders. They led from the front. They suffered like the other volunteers suffered. In fact, more than them, because their sentences were more than the ordinary defiers.
Uncle Kathy, certainly there are many others that still need to return home. It's a question that I asked Mama Winnie, in terms of, the message you'd perhaps have for these families who are yet to have their loved ones return to South Africa. They're yet to receive closure. They're yet to bury their loved ones as well.
No, it's wonderful to have some members of the family here to receive back their husbands, their fathers, but fathers of our struggle, fathers of our democracy. So it's wonderful to be among them to receive back these heroes into the country.
Uncle Kathy, thank you very much for your time. Mama Ruth, thank you so much for your time as well today. I think let's start with, today. What does today signify for you in particular?
For me, it really signifies the struggle of the people of South Africa. That our people are all over the world. They fell in battle as they were struggling for freedom. But the fact of the matter is that insofar as their people are concerned, there will always be leaders. There will always be, they are known and were accepted to be the leaders of our people. That doesn't, for instance, they have been away from home for I don't know for how many years, and they come back, and everybody is singing about them.
Do you think more needs to be told about many of these other struggle icons that fought from the front lines? We were hearing Uncle Kathy say, fought from the front lines. Many is said, of course, about many of the other struggle heroes. But, young people in particular in this country still need to be taught a lot more about what Moses Kotane and what JB Marks stood for.
Well, I, as far as I know, is that our people have never kept quiet about Moses and Moses Kotane and JB Marks, because those are the stalwarts. They are some of our stalwarts of our struggle. So it's not as if they are being introduced. They are just coming home where they belong. They were where they were because at that point in time they were struggling for the freedom of our country. They fell in battle like most of our soldiers felt where they fell. Yes.
Mama, thank you very much for your time there. Certainly, speaking to quite a lot of these struggle icons, you're saying today is a day to be celebrated. Today is a day to remember exactly what these two struggle heroes stood for. But now we're going to link to an insert that's going to show you exactly how this repatriation process started. Kunjani? Hey, masimbambe ukhuluwa man, SABC live. Sithi nje kancinci. Sure, uzawuhlala. Okay, sure. Give us a few minutes, I'll get it.
Check.
Sorry, darling.
Okay, he's still greeting. Halima is still greeting.
I can ad-lib so long. Sure.
Stand by.
To ad-lib. Just to ad-lib.
And beyond her face, beyond his face.
Thank you very much once again, Tumelo. So many of the guests that you can see here, lots of hugs and kisses as well. Basically welcoming back Moses Kotane as well as JB Marks. I'm going to see now if I can't really just interrupt with an interview here, the former Deputy President of the country, Kgalema Motlanthe, and President, thank you so much for your time. Quite hijacked, but certainly a day to celebrate here as well, former Deputy President.
Yes, this is a very special day, in a sense, it leaves one with a deep sense of ambivalence, because it also serves as a measurement of how far people had to go in order for us to be free. But on the other hand, these are people whose lives should be celebrated, because they played a very important role in the very dark days and infused into the liberation movement progressive outlook, and for that we are eternally indebted to them.
They certainly didn't get to see democracy, the democracy that we're now enjoying, but certainly one can say these are the founding fathers that paved the way for this democracy, not only in South Africa, but certainly internationally, galvanizing support against the apartheid government.
Nations grow when men and women plant trees, even though they know that they will never sit in the shade of those trees. Yeah, that's how nations grow.
Certainly a day of closure as well, but a day where perhaps South Africans can look back and say it was a good fight, but those who need to return to South Africa, some of them, indeed, we look at the likes of your Nat Nakasa, we look at JB Marks and Moses Kotane today, who've also returned. Certainly one can say many more who died for this country will return.
Well, there are many more who have foreign countries as their shrouds. In countries like Tanzania, Zambia, Angola, Cuba, the remains of Alex Laguma are in the cemetery in Havana, for instance. And so the others, like Yusuf Dadu in London. So that, in a sense, serves as a bond between us and all these nations here.
Certainly one that needs to continue. Certainly one can say, Russia played a pivotal part in supporting South Africa during that era. Of course, Moses Kotane as well as JB Marks in that country to galvanize support, but many other nations as well. The unity certainly that stands, for example, within the tripartite alliance of not having achieved this democracy on its own.
Well, these two stalwarts both studied in the Soviet Union. Moses Kotane in 1931 and J.B. Marks in 1933. And so the contribution of the old Soviet Union was not only in, giving them the fitting send-offs that they got, but they had actually shaped them. The education that they could not, attain here, they were able to attain in the old Soviet Union. Yeah.
Thank you very much for your time. Well, certainly we'll speak to quite a number more people who are here to welcome back these struggle stalwarts here, Moses Kotane and certainly JB Marks. Certainly something that the family would want to see so many South Africans coming together. Well, the singing that you can also see here towards my left, the SACP saying these two fallen heroes were one of their own. And let's take a look right now. Exactly who were these two individuals? Who was JB Marks? Who was Moses Kotane? Let's take a look at this insert that will shed quite a lot of light on who they were. Thank you, guys. If you could stand here for me, please. All right. Sir, can I just get the correct spelling of your name, please?
It's Petrakov. Petrakov. Petrakov.
Okay, guys, can we get the right number, sir? Can we have your designation as well?
Go towards the carpet. Towards the carpet.
Towards the carpet. All right. Okay, great. Sir, can I just get some of your details? All right, thanks. Well, the formal proceedings are expected to get underway here around about 11:30 to 12 o'clock. We're expecting President Jacob Zuma to arrive between 11:30 and 12 o'clock, where an official ceremony will take place to honor these true struggle icons who fought not only in South Africa, but that fought internationally to galvanize support against the apartheid government in this country. They never got to see democracy. They never got to taste the fruits of democracy. We are certainly enjoying that, and it's all to people, or thanks to people like Moses Kotane as well as JB Marks, people who gave for the people of this country but never got to enjoy it as well. But with the many dignitaries who are here, this was just not a repatriation of mortal remains that was South Africa's responsibility. It was also the responsibility of Russia. You would recall, as I earlier indicated, that President Jacob Zuma visited Russia in 2014, where together with his Russian counterparts, they had basically agreed that the remains of these true struggle icons would return to South Africa. There was the repatriation process. Several teams from South Africa were sent to Moscow to go and repatriate the remains of these true struggle icons. But I'm now going to speak to the ambassador of Russia to South Africa. Thank you so much for joining us, sir, for your time. Certainly must be quite a big day, not only for South Africa, but for two South Africans as well, who had been on foreign soil, that had been in Russia, galvanizing support so many decades ago for the liberation of the people of this country. Certainly it must have been quite a daunting task on the Russian government.
Today is a very solemn day, but also sad and joyful. It is sad because two great stalwarts with whom we worked, with whom we had the honor to fight together and whom we had the honor to assist, have left us. They've departed Russia, and this is sad. But we are glad that they are back home in their motherland. And of course, the Russian government was very cooperative in assisting South African government in completing this task, particularly considering excellent relations which we enjoy with your country.
Certainly this were negotiations that had been taking place for a very long time, and we know some of the families, the Kotane family has been saying they want the remains to return, but certainly where these two great South African stalwarts, or even international stalwarts, lay in Russia, do people know who these two gentlemen are?
Of course they do. Actually they were buried at maybe the most sacred place in Moscow, the most important cemetery, the Novodevichy Cemetery. It is in the heart of the city, and it has very strong historical links and significance for Russians. So whoever is buried in the Novodevichy Cemetery is a sign that the person is really a great person, and of course Russians know who they are. And as far as my memory goes, at some point in time Russia was known in the ANC as Malome's place.
Malome's place. That's fantastic. But the ties have always been there, Ambassador, between the Soviet Union, the ANC. Those ties continue to exist. I recall President Jacob Zuma in 2014 with the talks that he had with Russian President Vladimir Putin about getting the repatriation process kick-started. Those strong ties have always been there.
Yes. the ties has always been there. We enjoyed very good relationship in the first place because we share a lot of interests in the international arena. We are both BRICS members. The presidents enjoy very good personal relations. But of course, the fact that we were together during the time of the struggle helps a lot, immensely. This is a psychological background for our closeness. And it is very important that people in Russia and in South Africa continue to remember about this, and particularly the younger people, the younger generation, so that the feats done by South African stalwarts and our assistance would not go down into history and never be forgotten.
Thank you very much for your time. The Russian ambassador to South Africa, if you could just come just here behind me. Thank you very much for your time. Certainly saying that the ties between South Africa and Russia have always been there. You would recall that Russia played quite a pivotal role in housing many of the South Africans who were in exile in that country, going to either galvanize support or either fleeing the country or leaving their families behind due to the difficult situation that had been in South Africa during the apartheid era. We'll certainly speak to quite a number of people who will continue to come here today. We're expecting, of course, the president of the country, the president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma, to give us some more details, about, we're expecting him to speak quite a lot about the contribution that these two stalwarts have made to the liberation of this country, which they sadly did not get to see. I'll cross to you in studio for now. We'll come back to you a bit later on. Thank you so much. 2 seconds. We need breathing space. Mama, how are you?
I'm very well. That's good.
We want to get your names right.
I'm Sophie Williams de Bruin.
Mama Sophie Williams de Bruin. Tabo, Mama Sophie Williams de Bruin. Thank you. Please slightly towards the carpet. We don't want to stand on it.
Stand here. I'll just turn to you. So if you could stand this way, please. Thank you so much. You happy with that? Can I get makeup? Yo.
Okay, let's stand at par with her. So
Okay.
that you stand a little bit.
Do you want me to stand here?
Okay.
Mama Sophie will come to you very shortly.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Sharp. They're at the break. They're coming back to us.
I can't hear anything, so please stand
Yeah, they're at the break.
here. I can't
No.
see you. Sorry? Well, welcome back to the Ventersdorp Air Force Base. Of course, as we've been saying throughout the morning, the remains of the struggle icons, Moses Kotane as well as JB Marks, have both returned to South Africa shortly after 6 o'clock this morning. You would recall, of course, that Moses Kotane died in 1978. Of course, in Moscow, in Russia, he had been serving there as, the General Secretary of the South African Communist Party at the time of his death, and had also been the Treasurer General of the African National Congress. And JB Marks, at the time of his death, had been the chairman of the South African Communist Party. He also served in the National Executive Committee of the African National Congress. JB Marks died in 1972. Dignitaries continue to come through here to the Ventersdorp Air Force Base for the official ceremony of the welcoming of these remains of these stalwarts who fought so much for the struggle in this country. But what would part of this broadcast be without speaking to the women who were in the forefront of the struggle of this country, who marched to the union buildings? You would recall those brave women who marched to the union buildings to go and say no to the past laws of the time during the apartheid era. And I'm going to be joined now by Mama Sophie de Bruyn-Williams. Mama, thank you so much for your time. It's always such a great pleasure seeing you. Always looking younger every time I see you.
Thank you.
Mama Sophie, I think, first of all, my first question to everybody is the significance of this day, the jovial mood, the celebration that we're seeing here.
And this Crusader is how it ought to be, joyful and glorious and happiness, because this is a very unique day, and it brings memories back to me personally of Uncle JB Marks and Uncle Moses Kotane, as we called him during that time, so many years ago, because we were the youth of the 50s. And Uncle JB Marks, I remind myself of his kindness, his friendliness, always having a smile on his face,
Yes.
and always trying to encourage us, the youth of that time, and instilling in us hard work and determination, because those were hard days. And I also remember Uncle Moses Kotane, also a very friendly father. They were both father figures to us young ones. Uncle Moses was a little bit more sterner, and he didn't brook any nonsense.
That's right.
But I remember when I was in Moscow, when Uncle Moses Kotane was in hospital, he had already had the stroke.
That's great.
And I was in Moscow for 3 months, and I visited him every day. And the kindness and the love and the care of the Soviets, the Russians, every day a young Russian was sent to his room. He had a whole suite to himself. They looked after him so well, as if he was a president in state. And this young man, this young Russian man, used to come and read to him every day a chapter from a book. And I remember when I walk in there and I see this young man there, I would want to leave the room, and he would show me not to go, and he would motion to me to sit down, and I have to sit down and listen to the reading as well, because he wanted company, he wanted us from his own. And our young students from the universities around Russia always used to come and pop in and come and have a kind word, and I wanted to be encouraged. You see Uncle Moses and Uncle JB Marks, the stalwarts, the builders, the foundation layers of our struggle. They were the ones that brought even us of that generation to where we are today.
But certainly that was till the end, because you would recall when Moses Kotane was sent to Russia to rehab. He never, of course, did recover, but, steadfast, stern until the end, fighting for the liberation in this country,
And
there to educate those outside of this country about why there needed to be a support for South Africa during the dark days.
The support for South Africa was very needed, because, there was very little resources to carry on the struggle. And I remember our leadership of that time used to visit Moscow to seek counsel from him, from both of them, and to report to them, and to consolidate with them. and then to bring back the message, and that is how it used to be. But I must say, the Russians were a great inspiration and a source, and without them we couldn't have been where we are today. They carried us, they fed us, they looked after our students, they educated our students. I have a daughter that was educated in the Soviet Union, in the Patrice Lumumba University, and that university was set up for foreign students, not only for South African students, but the Russians and the Cubans carried our people, our South African nation, all the way.
But it must also be quite emotional, Mama Sophie, that, I mean, you were in that struggle. You suffered the brutality of that struggle. You were able to see a brighter day, a brighter South Africa, a new South Africa. But unfortunately, they didn't. But eventually now they're back home. Some closure, at least for the family and perhaps for some South Africans as well?
A closure for the family, mostly. For us, certainly. And for the greater nation, there's closure today. And I think for all our people that are still outside, we are all wanting them to come back, and for the families to find closure, and for their remains to be finally at home and amongst their own relatives and their people.
Mama Sophie de Bruin Williams, thank you so much for your time. Always a great pleasure speaking to you. But we're going to speak to a lot more dignitaries that are coming in here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base. The hangar where we are actually is towards the right of the Waterkloof Air Force Base. Many of the dignitaries as well sitting here in front, the Kotane family as well as the Marks family as well. We're expecting President Jacob Zuma. I don't quite have the time with me right now, but I'm sure we're expecting him any minute now as well to come into this area. Let me turn towards this direction and see what all that ululating is about and who is about to enter the hangar at the moment. I'm a bit too far from where all that ululating is taking place, but certainly we'll bring you a lot more on the proceedings here and this absolutely fantastic, I must say, ceremony that is taking place for two struggle icons. I'll come back to you with a bit more much later. You guys are on. You guys are on fire. No, I'm just gonna go and put my makeup a little bit.
Okay, that's good.
Thabo, come in urgently.
He's listening, he's listening.
Thabo, we are taking President Zuma as he comes in. We've got the go-ahead from what's his name? Ndawonde. Sharp.
You are ready?
Yeah, I'm ready. No, but wait for the president first. Aibo, mabuza. No, but the president is not here yet.
We are standing by, Thabo. Mind you. We are going to link to you, we are going to talk. Yeah?
Sure.
Yeah.
Dawande. Well, welcome back to the Ventersdorp Air Force Base once again. Once the mortal remains of JB Marks and Moses Kotane have finally touched down here in South Africa. Of course, if you missed that, that was at shortly after 6 o'clock this morning. Men who played such a pivotal role in the liberation of this country, unsung heroes who we are here to celebrate today. Certainly a lot of relief for the family. We've spoken to them previously saying while their great-grandfathers, their fathers have not been able to see this democracy, to enjoy the fruits of this democracy, but certainly today is a day where one can say that those who fought, at least in JB Marks as well as Moses Kotane, they've certainly returned back to South Africa, and those gains were not in vain. Those gains were fought for a better South Africa, a South Africa that certainly you and I get to enjoy here today. We're expecting in the next few minutes throughout this door here towards that direction. I'm not sure if you're able to see that, but the President of the Republic, the President of the African National Congress, Jacob Zuma, to come through that door. Certainly will have a lot to say about these two struggle heroes. You would recall that when President Jacob Zuma met with Moses Kotane's wife, she certainly did express some years ago her interest to see her husband return home to South African soil, and certainly that repatriation was facilitated in 2014 with President Jacob Zuma's visit to Russia. We heard from the Russian counterparts as well that the ties that existed between South Africa and Russia at the time continue, and that it was inevitable that the remains of these two South Africans who fought tirelessly will continue to be repatriated back here to South Africa. President Jacob Zuma is also expected to touch on the lasting legacy of these two stalwarts and what that should be for South Africans, what South Africans should learn from the fight that certainly was not in vain, the fight that Moses Kotane and JB Marks took all the way to Russia. Both died on foreign soil. Moses Kotane in 1978 and JB Marks in 1972. That fight was not in vain. Of course, you would know that Moses Kotane had suffered a stroke while he was back here on African soil, but he was sent to Russia once he had suffered that stroke. He had gone to rehab, but that was not enough as well. It was his time. Moses Kotane died on foreign soil. But while the Russian counterparts are saying certainly that, they were internationalists, they were struggle heroes that shed a lot of light about the sufferings in South Africa at the time, it was the duty of those countries to stand by South Africa. And certainly we can see those ties between South Africa and Russia continue till this day, dating back to the Soviet Union as well. But we're still waiting for the president of the country. I'm going to actually turn towards my right as well and see if we're not seeing President Jacob Zuma coming through just as yet. But we'll bring you more. We'll come back to you once again once President Jacob Zuma does enter the building, and we'll bring you a lot more after that. Okay, let's take the next one when President Zuma is actually coming. I'm taking Nathi Mthethwa, move. Sukan. Ina, take Nathi Mthethwa. Sorry, darling. No. I want to take Nathi Mthethwa. I need, because he was part of the repatriation. Oh, yeah, he is. Is he starting?
The repatriation.
How, Minister? Minister. Sithi sukuthola kuqala kubambe la.
Uyakuya uthethe naye kuqala. Uthethe naye nanku na.
Thabo, stand by for Nathi Mthethwa. I'm going to get him now.
Check.
We can't take him now. I think he's about to start the program.
Nathi now because she's apparently is doing the opening.
Hello, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, everyone. Long live the spirit of Moses Kotane, long live. Long live the spirit of Moses Kotane, long live. Long live the spirit of JB Marks, long live. Long live the spirit of JB Marks, long live. Viva Moses Kotane, viva. Viva the spirit of Moses Kotane, viva. Viva the spirit of JB Marks, viva. To the ministers here present, can somebody help us there? Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, comrades and friends, we are gathered here to receive the mortal remains of the two giants of our country, Moses Kotane and JB Marks. In no time, the President of the Republic of South Africa will be joining us, who will also be addressing us on this very important occasion. It is an occasion where all of us in South Africa, together with our friends in Russia, we are writing our own story. The story of the success of the revolution, of the national democratic struggle led by these two great leaders who gave their all for all of us to be enjoying the freedom and democracy we are enjoying today. It is not a day of many speeches. It is a day where the leader, the head of state, the leader of the people of South Africa, the commander-in-chief of the armed forces in this country will be addressing us. Ours is to ensure that we observe this very important moment, a moment which our Russian friends have told us that it is a moment of mixed feelings insofar as they are concerned. It is mixed because they understood and they understand that both Uncle JB and Malume Kotane were part of the progressive world. It's mixed that they are back in their country, but they are also happy that they are back in a free and democratic South Africa, of which Marx and Kotane fought for. These two stalwarts have to be known by all of us, young and old. Because if we don't know who Uncle JB is, and if we don't know who Malume Kotane is, it means as a people, we really do not know our history. We do not know men and women who led us to be where we are today. It would be an indictment that the whole world know very well who these great revolutionaries are. As we said, today we are writing our own story. We'll pause and wait for the President of the Republic of South Africa to enter as he has arrived. We thank you for now.
President is on the mic.
Well, a very good afternoon to you. We now welcome our viewers on SABC2. We've been broadcasting on the SABC's 24-hour news channel on DSTV channel 404, bringing you the repatriation, the final coming home of two of South Africa's struggle stalwarts, that is JB Marks as well as Moses Kotane, who died in Russia. Moses Kotane died in Russia in 1978, and JB Marks in 1972. Both fell ill but were galvanizing support in that country against the apartheid government that was really the order of the day in South Africa. After more than 4 decades the loved ones of Moses Kotane as well as JB Marks will finally be able to get closer. President Jacob Zuma has declared the funerals of these two stalwarts Category 1 funerals, which means those are reserved for distinguished individuals, of course, bestowed with that honor by President Jacob Zuma. I'm going to turn towards my right at the moment. As you can see those visuals there, the President of the Republic, Jacob Zuma, finally arriving. He is hugging there a struggle stalwart in her right, Winnie Madikizela Mandela, Uncle Kathy, that is Ahmed Kathrada, as well as the chair of the ANC as well, also giving hugs there to struggle stalwarts, including Mama Sophie de Bruyn Williams there. Certainly a day that South Africans would want to remember, a day to say that those who died for the liberation of this country, that was not in vain. It's closure not only for these families who have spoken so fondly to say that they've been waiting for this moment for more than 20 years, for more than 30 years, for their loved ones to return to South Africa. The President of the Republic, they're having a conversation with Russia's ambassador to South Africa. Certainly a moment, one could certainly say ties between the two countries have always been there. They've been very strong. They continue to be strong. The ANC, of course, many of these ANC stalwarts had fled to so many countries around the world, asking for assistance, looking for shelter, could not be with their loved ones, could not be with their families, but certainly South Africa showing its gratitude also to Russia for allowing this repatriation process, of course kick-started by the President of the Republic, Jacob Zuma, in 2014, and very fast, I must say, to have taken place, the repatriation of these bodies. Well, the program is about to get underway any minute now. We're expecting the program director to be the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa. At some point, he will then, of course, introduce the President of the Republic. We can see that, President Jacob Zuma is accompanied there, of course, by one of his wives as well. But, so much jubilation inside this hangar, where a lot of these families are certainly saying it's a day that is meant for celebration. It's a day to say it was not all in vain. We're expecting a lot of tribute, of course, to be paid to JB Marks and to Moses Kotane for their struggle to be highlighted here. We're hearing a lot as well just a few minutes ago from the Arts and Culture Minister, Nathi Mthethwa, who facilitated the repatriation process. He, of course, went to Moscow to ensure that the remains of these two struggle heroes were repatriated, and they arrived this morning shortly after 6 o'clock. But a lot will be said about JB Marks and how this legacy of these two men should continue in this country. Those who don't know what they stood for should certainly take a leaf out of the proceedings today, and what government says it will continue. We'll remember as well, part of the national legacy program of the Department of Arts and Culture is to remind South Africans and also to educate them of what many of these unsung struggle heroes did to assist, who battled in the forefront for the liberation in this country. But I think we're going to go to the podium now, where the man who facilitated the repatriation of the remains of Moses Kotane and certainly of JB Marks to South Africa, certainly that all of that will be said today. But I'm going to hand over now to the Minister of Arts and Culture, Nathi Mthethwa, who will certainly carry out the program.
Of both Malume Kotane and Uncle JB Marks, the veterans of our struggle. Friends, comrades, ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, gave us a task of ensuring that the mortal remains of the two of our giants in the struggle for freedom and democracy are brought back home. We are here, Mr. President, to report that the task has been executed. We did so through military precision and with the determination of steel. Everyone involved has put a shoulder to the wheel, as everyone will attest that the deeds of the past generations remain engraved in the minds of the living. As we face the challenge of the day, we will borrow from them the battle cries and don their masks in surging forward. The wonderful and great works and deeds, the bravery of both Malume Kotane and Uncle JB Marks compels us never to retire before the job is done. Again, Mr. President, we want to express our gratitude, firstly, to you, His Excellency, for granting this a special official funeral. No one will challenge anybody who will express a feeling that here with us we have brought the forebears who made the 1994 breakthrough possible. Mr. President, the people and again the government of Russian Federation have expressed their happiness that finally the two stalwarts would be back in South Africa they envisaged decades ago, a free and democratic South Africa. But they were also at pains to part with these two internationalists whom they've kept for decades. And not just kept them, they kept them in a highly prestigious cemetery, a cemetery of well-known leaders of the Russian Federation, then USSR. So without any further ado, Your Excellency, we have already reported that today it is our President who's going to be talking to the nation. Ours would be to facilitate this monumental task. And in doing so, we will, without any waste of time, ask for the interfaith Prayers and remarks by Bishop Daniel Matebesi, Suraya Bibi Khan of the Islam, and Reverend Tammy Vambo. Could you come to the floor? Over to you.
If you believe and I believe and we together, the whole and Africa be saved, and Africa will be saved, the Holy Spirit must come down. South Africa will be saved. South Africa will. Let us find our scripture reading from the Old Testament, Exodus 20, verse 1. Exodus 20, verse 1. And God spoke these words, saying, I am the Lord your God, who brought you from the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And be still. This is the word of God. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we come before you this morning. We honor you, we bless your name. We humble ourselves before you. We know that you are God, the ruler of the universe. Heavenly Father, thank you very much for the gift of life this morning and the wonderful journey from Russia to our country. Dear Lord, we invite the Holy Spirit to take control of the proceedings of this historic moment. Dear Lord, clothe us with your Holy Spirit. We bring before you, Heavenly Father, the government of the Republic of South Africa, the two families of our heroes, our icons, the people who fought for the liberation of our people. Dear Lord, thank you very much for having given us the lives of these two heroes who fought for our liberation. Dear Lord, take care of the proceedings of this ceremony. We pray in the precious name of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, for now and forevermore. Amen. From the Islamic faith, Madam.
To honor the unity and diversity of our late stalwarts, Mr. Moses Kotane and Mr. JB Marks, I honor you and your families. I ask for protection from those rejectors in the name of our Lord, Ya Allah, the most beneficent, the most merciful. All the praise and thanks to be Allah, the most beneficent, the merciful, the owner of the day of judgment. Thee alone we worship, and Thee alone we ask for Yah. Guide us to the straight path, the way of those whom have been bestowed with your guidance and grace, and not those who go astray. A'udhu billahi minash shaitani rajim. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. Maliki Yawmiddin. Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-siratal mustaqim. Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim. Khairil mahdubi alayhim waladdallin. Amen.
Let us pray. You are God. You will always be God. You are referred to in many names. Creator and sustainer of our lives. Elohim, Yahweh, Jah, Jehovah, Allah, Mudim, Ramasedi, Shikwembu, Tiko, Nkulunkulu, Mudzimu, Mvelinganga. You were, you will always be. You will never be changed by time nor space. Omnipresent God, omniscient God, omniscience God, the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end. Lord, as we receive the remains of these two gallant heroes of our revolution, Moses Kotane and JB Marks, may you, Lord, bring peace, harmony, and development in our country. Let their blessings, Lord, shower us at this moment. As they join their ancestors in the land of their mother, Lord, bless the families, bless South Africa, bless our nation, bless our government. We ask all this, Lord, because we know that we are a God who will never disappoint those who believe in you. Thank you, Lord, for their lives. Strengthen us and give us hope. Strengthen us, Lord, as we celebrate the lives of these two heroes. Thank you, Lord, for their lives. And thank you, Lord, for South Africa. God bless Africa. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom. Shante. The peace of God be with us. Khotso ya Modimo e be le rona. Kamako. Amen.
Thank you. Thank you to our religious leaders. Ladies and gentlemen, excuse me. I left my voice in Russia. We'll arrange for its repatriation at some point. At this point, as we prepare to call to the podium our president, let me say, Mr. President, that the organizations the two leaders belonged to, the African National Congress, the South African Communist Party, and the Congress of South African Trade Unions, are here with us today as they were with us in Russia. alliance led by the national chairperson of the African National Congress, Comrade Kotane, and the Secretary General of the African National Congress, Comrade Gwede Mantashe, are here leading the alliance. We have comrade leaders of the SACP with us here. We have comrades of COSATU. We have the two families. We're together in Russia. We are together here. But we need to mention that in our midst, we have Mark Kotane with us here today. So allow me, Mr. President, to ask His Excellency, the President of the Republic of South Africa, to come and talk to the nation.
Thank you, Singer. Thank you, Minister. Thank you very much indeed. Comrades and friends, these are our leaders who are here, who have come back. And I imagine, as they were, they led everyone, from the intelligentsia to the ordinary citizens of this country. They were with them at all material times and expressed their feelings in every way. So if we behave unusually, just bear with us. We might be saying something which some people may not understand. We might talk, we might sing, we might cry. Just bear with us. Lo mhla sibuyayo, lo mhla sibuya, lo mhla sibuyayo, gothula kuthi, lo mhla sibuya, lo mhla sibuya, lo mhla sibuyayo, gothula kuthi tu. Kotane, Kotane, oh, goduma embamba phezulu kwentaba. Kotane, Kotane, oh, goduma embamba phezulu kwentaba. Lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuya yo, gothula kuthi. Lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuya yo, gothula kuthi tu. Kotane, Kotane, oh, goduma embamba phezulu kwentaba. Kotane, Kotane, oh, goduma embamba phezulu kwentaba. Lumhla sibuyayo, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuyayo, gothula kuthi, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuyayo, gothula kuthi tu, oh goduma embamba phezulu oh goduma embamba phezulu kwentaba lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuyayo, gothula kuthi, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuya, lumhla sibuyayo, gothula kuthi tu, oh goduma embamba phezulu oh goduma embamba phezulu kwentaba. Ingoma yomkhonto wesizwe le ababeyihlabelela besemazweni, amabombo bewabhekise ekhaya beholwa yilabaholi abala nabanye. Uma sisuka usinga ningasho ukuthi kwenze njani, luyasisuka nje ngoba kufika abaholi. Thank you very much, Minister, Director of the program, members of the Kotane and Marks families, ministers, premiers, deputy ministers, MECs, executive mayors, the leadership and membership of the African National Congress, the leadership and membership of the South African Communist Party, the leadership and membership of COSATU, our veterans of our struggle who are with us here, who worked with these two stalwarts. Your Excellencies, the ambassadors who are here, particularly the ambassador of the Russian Federation and all other diplomatic corps, comrades and friends, fellow South Africans, receive my heartfelt greetings on this historic day in the history of our country. The last time I addressed the nation here at the Waterkloof Air Force Base was when we gathered here to send off our icon, former President Nelson Mandela, to Qunu, where he would be finally laid to rest. Today, we meet during another historic occasion, sad but also joyous, as we receive the immortal remains of two giants who played a very key and integral role in the liberation struggle of our country, and who indeed formed part of the generation that paved the way for Madiba and his generation to usher in democracy and social justice. These two giants indeed played a critical and fundamental role in our struggle. They shaped the political thinking of many cadres and the leaders of our struggle in their lines, be in the ANC, be in the South African Communist Party, be in the trade union movement. They also shaped the thinking and policies as well as the revolutionary direction of all these key alliance partners, the ANC, the SACP, and SACTU, before COSATU. And indeed, they were in the main responsible to produce some of the giant leaders we have today. Our very icon, Nelson Mandela, is a product of these two. They are the fathers of our revolution. It was during their time that almost everything changed in this country, in the progressiveness, if you want, in the revolutionariness, if you want, in everything and values of the struggle and the cadres and organizations. Comrade Moses Kotane, our leader, and John Beaver Marks, our leader, popularly known as JB Marks, have finally come back home. This is after 5 decades of their exile. On their way out, it was long and difficult. From South Africa to Botswana, via Zambia, Tanzania, to reach Moscow, which is so far away. Today, because South Africa is free, it was just over 10 hours, I imagine. They were here. After 5 decades. We've had a lot of discussions with the families in the past because it could not be done without their consent and agreement. And I don't forget the day we had a discussion with Mama Nokwe. Mama Kotane. When she finally said, yes, he must come back. And he must arrive when I'm still alive. Comrades and friends, we are receiving their remains from Moscow, Russia, which was for them like a home away from home, where they were cared for and treated warmly by the friendly people of the former Soviet Union and now the Russian Federation. As the minister indicated, when they departed, they were buried in one of the most prestigious and leading cemeteries, where all the heroes of the Soviet Union and Russia are buried. They were among the heroes. They were given that respect because the Russian people recognized their contribution to the struggle in all areas. We express our sincere gratitude to President Vladimir Putin and the government of the Russian Federation for caring for our stalwarts in life and in death. I'm told that the Russians asked that where their graves have been, they need their busts that were always there to remain there for history. As the highest recognition of these two as the foremost internationalists of this country, recognized in the world, and I'm sure we will do everything we can to recognize them as such, to recognize these heroes for the work they've done for us. And I'm sure we'll have time to talk about it. There are tombstones at that cemetery, which became their temporary home in Moscow, indicated the respect and the status that they were given and accorded in that country, and further cemented the strong historic ties between South Africa and Russia. The cooperation of the Russian Federation in our efforts to bring these two giants of our struggle back to their land of birth, and the remarkable and stately send-off yesterday when they left Russia will also forever be remembered by the South African people as a gesture of true friendship. Today, we have brought them back home to a free South Africa. South Africa is today a democratic country based on the rule of law and fundamental human rights, largely owing to the sacrifices made by Moses Kotane, JB Marks, and all other leaders, as well as activists of their generation. We live in our country as free men and women and children, without the color of our skin determining our station in life, determining where we may work, live, or even be buried. Comrades and friends, maybe it is worth mentioning one important fact, that when President Oliver Tambo, as Deputy President of the ANC then, was given instructions to leave the country. As he landed outside, he realized the size of the task he had to deal with to mobilize the world community to support our struggle, and felt he needed additional hands. He then asked the organization to give him Moses Kotane to come and help him. What had Tambo come across? He went into a number of countries to ask for support of our struggle. All the Western countries, with no exception, said no. And yet, we had a struggle to fight. We had nothing. Absolutely nothing. Countries in Africa did not have all the necessary things we needed. Even those who could have heard it had to look over their shoulders for those countries that had denied the help. It was only when Oliver Tambo went to the Soviet Union then and other socialist countries where we got help to fight our struggle. I'm mentioning this because in that process, particularly, our leader, Moses Kotane, played a critical role to talk to the Soviet Union then and the other socialist countries. And now Russia, the then Soviet Union, supported us with everything. Military training of every description you can think of, academic education, produced doctors and everything, fed us, supported us to have something to eat. Even when we had difficulties in Africa, we did not know where to go because of the pressure from these countries who did not want to fight our struggle. They opened their doors to bring back all the cadres to stay in Russia. And all of these were done free of charge, no strings attached. They demonstrated the true friendship to the struggling people and oppressed people of South Africa. In fact, that we had the cutting edge of our struggle. We produced soldiers and everything. It was because of Russia, in the main. They were our true friends, not artificial friends. When we were sick, they treated us free of charge. When we died, they buried us in their land, as these two leaders have been sitting there, given respectful funerals, as if we're in our own country. Have we forgotten that? Maybe yes, because we now have new friends, wonderful friends with a lot of money. Maybe we've forgotten that. because usually human beings' memories are too short. I wonder how we would have fought this struggle without the Soviet Union and the socialist countries that today you are ashamed to talk about. Do they remain our friends? No, some will say, because we are now doing business. Perhaps Russians are not going to give us business. We've forgotten. Some of us will never forget that Russians were there when we needed them most. And that's why, when we asked, I had a discussion with President Vladimir Putin to introduce the request that we want our leaders home. And they did not hesitate, although they said these are international leaders. They could be everywhere in the world, but they understood. And they yesterday gave these two leaders one of the most respectful send-off with the Presidential Guard. Is there a country among those that could not support us who could have done so to our leaders, who could have given them this respect? I doubt. They wouldn't have done so because they don't value these. Maybe they value us now, I'm not sure. But I want to underline this because in our lives, perhaps me and many, this underlining is very important. Because at times we forget. And if I didn't say this when these two leaders are here, I wouldn't have an opportunity to say it again. We have many doctors who never paid a cent, who were trained by them, and generals. And scientists. Just 20 years. Says Kotli. Little bits. Huh? Little bits, yeah, no. These are facts of history. You cannot erase them. Fact that they capacitated us to fight and defeat our enemy. Nobody else. Indeed, it is no exaggeration to say that these two stalwarts were great visionaries who were way ahead of their time in terms of understanding the true meaning of non-racialism, and that it would be one of the cornerstones of a democratic South Africa. Our leader, Moses Kotane, made the communists in this country, the communists, if you like, the Marxists, to stop thinking like Europeans, to think like Africans, to solve the African problem. Equally made the trade unionists to stop thinking like the trade unions in Europe, to think about trade unions in Africa, in South Africa. That's why he worked hard to produce the kind of unions that were different from old unions. that had, to a large extent, the political understanding, conscious about national oppression, but not overdose. Not overdose. Overdose is what? When unions think they're political parties when they are not. That's overdose. And perhaps because we are now receiving real revolutionaries, politicians who knew politics, we can say these things. That if I do it today, I'm doing it in the name of who? I shouldn't therefore abuse their names. I must talk about something else. These were very clear. You are a communist, you are in Africa, you must think like an African. You are a trade unionist, you are in Africa, you can't just be a trade unionist, only understanding the factory floor issues. Go beyond that. Think about national oppression and therefore politics, but no overdose. We'll explain it one day when time allows. What do we mean? Because they helped us, taught us politics. Comrades and friends, in this year of the Freedom Charter and Unity in Action to advance economic freedom, we declare that we are proud of the legacy of Comrade Marks and Comrade Kotane, our leaders. They made a contribution to the emergence of the Freedom Charter itself and many other outstanding documents in this country. They fought for socialism. And they explained it. They were not shy, comrade communists. They were not shy to talk about the dictatorship of the proletariat. Because you are shy to do so. I've never heard a single one of you talking about it today. I'm not sure whether we are revising Marxism or what we are doing. And therefore, the struggle of the workers is no longer as sharp as it was. Ngicashe ngabo ngiyanitshela namhlanje. Ngicashe ngabo. I haven't hear you. Is there any one of you who talks about? I haven't heard you. Nisho maninodwa. Ngithola ngelinye ilanga, ngithola nishibhile ngitshela bantwana. Ngithola kahle. They said socialism now. Ninantini, socialism is the future, build it now. Not so? Yes. Nenze kahle nagqoka amajezi abomvu ngizonibona kahle. Today, we are shy to talk about class. Nikhuluma njengathi thina ama-nationalist. The gap between the poor and the rich. Niyayigqokisa, ningamakomanisi, my babo. You don't say the class gap has increased. Huh? The poor and the rich. What does it mean in Marxist terms? My babo. Comrades and friends, their homecoming is the beginning of a new chapter. It enables us to celebrate their contribution and to raise awareness amongst our people, especially the youth, of what these two great men did for this country. Comrades and compatriots, although Comrades Marx and Kotane were unflinching members and leaders of the African National Congress and the South African Communist Party, we must, as South Africans, across all political lines, celebrate their homecoming. It is a major milestone drawing us nearer to finding closure to our painful past as a nation. And I once again am making this point deliberately, because as leaders, I hope they are opening up a chapter that many of our comrades will come back. I don't think that some of us will rest before some of our comrades who lie in many countries come back. Because they are not there because they were just visiting. They had taken a decision to fight or die for this country. And therefore it is our duty to ensure that those poor families who don't have the means to fetch their loved ones, we should do everything we can to assist them, so that they can also close the chapter about their loved ones. That must be done by all of us, not by individuals. And I hope these leaders have now opened the way for us to think differently and to be innovative, to ensure that even if that process takes longer, but we'll begin a process to bring back our heroes and heroines. This homecoming should remind us that we have achieved a lot in just a few years. More especially, the vision outlined in the Freedom Charter, that South Africa belongs to all who live in it, black and white, and that no government can justly claim authority unless it is based on the will of all the people. This service should thus sharpen our resolve to deal decisively with the legacy of apartheid and to fight against the demon of racism, which rears its ugly head from time to time in our society, and all other related intolerances. We must do everything within the bounds of possibility to deal decisively with anything and everything that would undermine the gains of freedom and democracy that came through so much pain and sacrifice. Compatriots, as I conclude, we should like to call on all South Africans to participate in the programs which will take place as part of the build-up towards the ultimate reburial of these two giants. We should lay these two icons of our struggle to their final resting places. Both these icons are from the Northwest Province, and they will be reburied in their provinces. The burial ceremony of Moses Kotane will take place on the 14th of March in Pella. A week after or thereafter, we'll attend the burial ceremony of JB Marks on the 22nd of March in Ventersdorp. Bakwethu usuku olubalulekile lolu. Kubaluleke kakhulu impela ngoba lusuku oluyingqayizivele emlandweni wezwe lethu nasemlandweni wenkululeko yabantu nezwe lethu iNingizimu Afrika. Abaholi bethu babuyile ekhaya emva kweminyaka eminingi bengcatshwe kude ezweni laseRussia lapho bebephethwe kahle khona nangenhlonipho uhulumeni nabantu baseRussia. Sithi kubaholi bethu namukelekile ekhaya, sinimukela ngezandla ezifudumeleyo. Siyajabula kakhulu ukuthi senizolala niphumule ekhaya eNingizimu Afrika. Ezweni enalilwela nadela konke selikhululekile. Comrades and compatriots and friends, let me thank the Marx and Kotane families for sharing these stalwarts with the people of South Africa. We thank them for their resilience during trying times of persecution and separation from their loved ones. Mama Kotane, you are 103 years old this year. The same age as your organization, the ANC. You have waited long to see this day. We are glad that it has finally come and that you have witnessed the return of the remains of your loved one. We feel good together with you as your children. Fellow South Africans, the words of the late Dr. Yusuf Dadoo about JB Marks applies to both of these icons of our struggle when he said, and I quote, "In the life of every nation, there arise men who leave an indelible and eternal stamp on the history of their peoples. Men who are both products and makers of history. And when they pass, they leave a vision of a new and better life and the tools with which to win and build it. Unquote. We say welcome home to these two outstanding men who gave so much to this country. To leaders and members of the tripartite alliance, as we receive these leaders, remember these few things. Unity of our organizations. They stood for it. They lectured on it. They lived it. Discipline in the revolution. They lived it. They preached it. These two went further. When in the ANC and in the trade union movement they talked about discipline, and they meant it. But when they were in the Communist Party, they talked about iron discipline of the party is qualified. Siyezwana bafowethu, uyawutlwana. Huh? Siyezwana. Hey. Umusu ubona umuntu ephathe phetiche eshaya umunye esitaladini. Is that still discipline? My babo. Wanda msebenzi mali yodwa ngekho. And they taught us revolution. Revolution is a broad term, meaning changing things radically. Now, I don't want to talk about people who talk about South Africa as if they know it when they don't. Let us remember the values of our organizations, of our society. And let us remember the principles that guide this movement and guide a revolution. I said their arrival must be opening a new page, not for others, for us. Because it is us who must change. They were never involved, these two, in any gossip of any nature, nor in cliques, nor in slates. These two were never involved. A comrade was a comrade. If we had forgotten, let us go back. So papatiswa kabusha. Because we would not have respected them if we remained where we are, in our behavior, in our understanding, in our leading the people of this country. At least there must be an inspiration to all of us. We have a task to lead this country, given to us by the people of this country, as an alliance. Unity, discipline, revolutionary morality, values, and principles of our struggles. That's what we must remember as we receive these two leaders. Yes. Welcome to a free and democratic South Africa, our leaders. Your sacrifices, dedication, commitment, and hard work were not in vain. Here we are as your followers and will always follow your thoughts, your ideas, your leadership. Thank you for leading us and making us to be what we are today, all of us in the Alliance. And thank you very much, Kotane and Marks family. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We thank you. We thank you, Mr. President, for your reviving address of these two outstanding giants of our struggle. We are going to ask Minister Khatebe to give a vote of thanks, and we have the whole day, friends, comrades. But after that, we will make announcements of the week or 2 weeks to come, what will actually happen. Minister Khatebe.
Thank you, Cabinet colleague, Minister Mthethwa, His Excellency President Zuma, the former Deputy President Kgalema Motlanthe, the Speaker of the Assembly, Baleka Mbete, Cabinet colleagues, premiers, members of the Kotane and Marks family, veterans of the struggle, and all mourners present here today. Firstly, I would like to take this opportunity of thanking His Excellency President Zuma for gracing this very solemn reception ceremony to receive the mortal remains of the two giants of our liberation struggle. Your words will comfort the families, but also give us courage of moving forward in the steps of these two giants. I would also like, secondly, to thank Mayor Kotane, the Kotane family, and the Marks families for having borne us for a while as the ANC, Communist Party, our Revolutionary Trade Union, and the liberation movement as a whole, these towering figures and heroes of the South African people. Their DNA stamp has left an indelible mark on the footprint of the people's struggle for freedom and democracy. Without Uncle JB Marks, without Malume Kotane, there would never be an icon called Nelson Mandela, as the President has said. As a young man, Nelson Mandela, as a young man in the 50s, Nelson Mandela used to break up meetings of the Communist Party because he could not tolerate two bulls in one kraal. It was either a black bull or a white bull. But with the wise counsel of these two giants at the Rivonia, he said he has now fought against black domination and against white domination, and this non-racialism he was prepared, if needs be, to die for. That's Moses Kotane and Uncle JB Marks. Thirdly, I would like to thank our cabinet colleagues in the Interministerial Committee on State Funerals for having coordinated this process from the beginning up to this stage. In particular, Minister Mthethwa for having led the delegation to Moscow for the exhumation and the repatriation of the mortal remains of our two leaders. government officials from each government department, especially our women and men of the Defense Force, for having ensured their safe return back home. Your individual and collective efforts have really become a fitting tribute to the heroes as we welcome them here back home. Also like to acknowledge and also thank every one of us who is present here today. But last but not least, our ambassador from the Federal Republic of Russia, who is present here today, and also to convey, as the President has said, our gratitude to the people of the former Soviet Union and now the Russian Federation. The former Soviet Union, as the President has said, not only gave us arms, but it gave us education, it gave us clothes, it gave us medical supplies, it gave us food, but above all, they gave us all the necessary things that we needed to prosecute our struggle for people's freedom. Uncle JB used to call the Soviet Union the land of the proletariat, the mecca of revolutionaries. The president of the ANC in the 20s, Josiah Skumede, after visiting the Soviet Union, he said he has been to the New Jerusalem. You have encouraged me, Mr. President, when you started singing before you made your speech. It reminded me of a song that you used to sing in MK camps and in exile about the Soviet people, the lovely people. Here we are far from home. We shall love you, we shall need you for the things that you have done for us. Soviet people, lovely people, yeah, we are far from home. We shall love you, we shall need you for the things we've done for us. Oh, Soviet people, the lovely people, yeah, we are far from home. We shall love you, we shall need you for the things you've done for us.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister Khatebe. Though you've forgotten the second stance, that when our freedom comes along, we are making the announcement now, and the announcement is that today it was the reception and welcoming of the leaders. Before the first reinterment or reburial, we are going to have a memorial service, which will be in the province of Kotane. And then we'll go on to the two funerals as the President has just mentioned. Perhaps it would be important to make the point that as we engage in the build-up program which the President referred to, we are reminded that the entire nation would be undergoing political classes which Malume Kotane and JB Marks underwent. And these classes would be, as we said earlier on, writing our own story, which will take our own country forward. And our story is simple. It's the story the President has briefed us about. is a story of Malume Kotane and Uncle JB Marks. At this point, ladies and gentlemen,
well, that brings us to an end to our special broadcast here on SABC2 as well as on the SABC's 24-hour news channel on DSTV channel 404. The official homecoming of two struggle stalwarts, JB Marks and Moses Kotane. Now, the official funerals for Moses Kotane will take place on the 14th of March, and the official goodbye or funeral for JB Marks will take place on the 22nd of March, while both of them are Category 1 funerals. The President, Jacob Zuma, of course, earlier in February announcing that both of them will receive a special funeral in that regard, in anticipation, of course, for the many people who want to perhaps say goodbye to these struggle heroes who fought so tirelessly. We saw President Jacob Zuma there really paying tribute to both of those struggle heroes, saying that if it was not for the both of them and many others like them, South Africa would not be enjoying the democracy that it's enjoying today, and certainly saying they were the ones who even came before the late great former President Nelson Mandela. They were the ones who shaped the democracy that this country is today enjoying. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for, both here on SABC2 and the DSTV channel 404. Thank you very much for watching.
With us, and the Premier of Northwest Province is here with us, and other premiers. Thank you. May we then allow the President to depart at his leisure, and all of us would be leaving. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you.